What's up, y'all? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, and we are getting ready for another big week in college football. It is week 10. Auburn coming off a big win over Ole Miss at Jordan-Hare Stadium, 31-20. Now it's time to look ahead as they head to College Station, home of the 12th man. Can they get it done against the Aggies? I don't know. We'll see, and we'll chat with Cole here on another edition of Auburn Head to Head.
Oh, let's go now. Oh, oh, now, now.
All right, Cole, so big win for Auburn. I know that we talked about this last week, and it was kind of a toss-up. We thought Auburn could potentially get it done against Ole Miss, and they did just that. Obviously, Bo Nix came out and had a tremendous performance. The defense returned guys like Owen Papo, TD Moultrie, which obviously added a lot of juice and a lot of just energy to that defense. And now the big question is, can they carry that momentum into College Station? And I want to start right there with you, Cole. Nix, he gets benched middle of the season, earlier in the season. And this is a guy that could have folded. This is a guy that could have said, peace out. I'm, just with everything that's been going on these past couple of years for him, and just the ups and downs and the constant scrutiny and the constant criticisms. And here he is continuing to fight, continuing to get better. What do you see in this Bo Nix that we did not see earlier in the season and even in previous seasons?
Well, I think first and foremost, the coaching staff's done a good job of utilizing his strengths, finding the things that he does best, and creating a plan around those that can allow him to be more successful. That's going to build his confidence. That's going to build the confidence of his teammates. And then I think he personally has just adjusted some things. He's understanding how to put a little bit more air under the deep ball. I think that's giving him success down the field. An example from this game against Ole Miss, the two things that I saw that were the most impressive, Lauren, were when the ball needed to come out quick, on quick throws, there was no hesitation. It was 1-2, get the ball out, let it rip, and that was it. And then being able to check the ball down. That sounds really simple and really easy, but one, it tells me he's getting through his progressions, which is not something he did a lot of last year. And then two, instead of trying to play hero ball, just dump it out to your running back, get them in space, and let them go make a play. Those are two not major things that I saw from Bo Nix against Ole Miss, but they're two things that if you can do consistently are going to go a long way in helping your football team win games. He still brings the competitive aspect. He still brings that toughness to the table. So he has all those other things that were positive we've seen before, but this coaching staff's just finding better ways to allow him to succeed. And then two other things that I think he's improved on himself to be able to allow his team to find more success.
Yeah, certainly tough, making good decisions. Harsin has talked about that time and time again, and most recently after this game, throwing the ball a lot more confidently. And even Nick said, since the LSU game, he said, I've gotten my confidence back. The past few games, I've played with that mindset, cut it loose. You've got nothing to lose. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. And of course, you have to give credit to the offensive line. The offensive line continues to improve. They're not allowing much quarterback pressure there. Very few sacks given up in these, last few games for the Auburn Tigers. And so I imagine a lot more of that will continue. I think the obviously the ground and pound, Tank Bigsby put up 140 rushing yards against Ole Miss. So then the big question going into College Station, this is a Texas A&M team that's done a little bit of this, obviously losing to Arkansas, losing to Mississippi State, kind of trying to wrap your mind around that. And then you go beat the number one team in the country in Alabama, obviously at home. And, again, it's just been some up and downs. They've got a quarterback situation that was not, all too pleasing there early in the season, but that is much improved. But starting on the offensive side of the football, going against this Texas A&M defense, they're going to be challenging for Auburn, more challenging than this Ole Miss defense. And prior to the bye week, they only gave up 185 total yards to South Carolina. So, and they've been solid on third down situations. How do you see this matchup playing out, the Auburn offense versus Texas A&M defense?
I think it's the most difficult challenge up front outside of Georgia that this Auburn offensive line will see this entire season. DeMarvin Leal is going to be a top 10 pick. Michael Clemens will be on an NFL roster. Peavy's going to be on an NFL roster. So you've got a defensive front that can be problematic. And Elko has devised solid schemes in the majority of the games that they've played this year. Offensively, it's really hard to go back and look at the first 3-4 games of the year and take a lot from what we saw in those games and try to apply it to this game, because Haynes King goes out. Then you're trying to rebuild the offense. They played 13 different offensive line combinations. So you had a couple of guys banged up there. You lost Matthews, your original starting center. So then you have to replace him. Kenyon Green starts out at right tackle. Then he needs to go to right guard. Then he goes to left tackle. Now he's back at left guard. You lose Layden Robinson at right guard. Now he's back. The offensive line looks more the way it has supposed to look before the season, with Green at left guard, Robinson at right guard. You have a new center. You have a new right tackle, but Fatherly at 6'8", 320 has actually played pretty good out there. And then Jameer Johnson, the Tennessee transfer, is your regular starter now at left tackle. He was out a little bit for injury at different points in the time in the season. So both lines of scrimmage, I think, are going to be highly challenged and highly tested for this Auburn team, because outside of Georgia, I don't know if you've seen a lot like this. And then you think about the skill that A&M now brings around Zach Calzada, who's done some good things in this offense. You got Spiller, A-Chain, Smith, Weidermeyer at tight end. They have weapons all over the place. So Derek Mason's got his hands cut out. They might not be as powerful and heavy-handed as the Georgia football team that Auburn saw a little bit earlier, but I actually think their skill on offense is better overall than what Georgia brings to the table. So it's a massive test. And then obviously having to go to Kyle Field, never an easy place to play. A lot of these kids on this team have done it. Obviously, this has been a weird series since Texas A&M came into the SEC, but this is going to be a massive challenge in a lot of different areas for this Auburn football team.
Yeah, and I pointed this out earlier in the season, when Alabama played Texas A&M. I covered the Texas A&M spring game, and obviously Haynes King was supposedly that was going to be their guy. And, Zach Calzada was kind of playing, from what the coaching staff had told us, it was kind of more of a 1A, 1B situation. So there wasn't a huge drop off with Zach Calzada per se. But, obviously when he replaced Haynes King there at the beginning of the season, there were some glaring issues. There were some concern that he's not going to be able to lead this football team. But obviously things have picked up, as you mentioned there. The offensive line certainly showing a lot of improvement. And they've shown that in these recent weeks. And then they're coming off a bye week. You look at Auburn, obviously going and playing an emotional one there in Jordan-Hare Stadium. They get the big win. Can they carry that momentum into College Station? We know that's a really tough place to play. And as we close things out defensively, Auburn held Ole Miss to less than half of its average scoring output with just 157 rushing yards. That's the second lowest total of the season. And so to me, this Auburn defense has really just shown its stride. It's really coming together. They had two fourth quarter shutouts, Arkansas and Ole Miss. And so seeing the way that they've competed, the way that they've performed, as you mentioned, Derek Mason certainly going to have his hands cut out. But how significant is it to get guys like Owen Pappo and TD Moultrie back in the lineup after being out for 3 and 4 weeks?
I think it was massive. And just to get Owen Pappo back, give you some extra reps at linebacker there. And along the defensive line with Moultrie, it's going to be huge, because you're going to have to roll your D-line in this league. It just has to happen. You have to stay fresh. You have to have guys who can impact games. And we talked about it last week that it felt like Colby Wooden had sort of been the mainstay up front for Auburn, and then you would get another contributor each and every week, and it had been different. It had changed. I thought that was a little bit different against Ole Miss. I thought you had really great reps from multiple players up front. Colby maybe not as strong of a game as we've seen him had in the past, but you saw TD Moultrie make a few plays. Colby made a few plays himself. You saw a couple of different guys at different points in the game be able to step up. It wasn't consistently one or two bodies. It shows me that the group has a little bit of a better understanding of what the scheme is asking for them. And you saw Tony Fair made a big play late in the first half. So multiple guys now being able to contribute and help is going to be big, because I think this is the best offensive line that Auburn's played, especially with the way that they're playing now and what they've had set the last couple of games. And with an off week, A&M's only going to be a little bit healthier, because they were coming off an 8-week stretch of games that now they're going to be able to take a little bit of a break and sort of regroup. So a massive test. Anybody that you can get that can help and take reps up front against this kind of an offensive line is going to be big.
All right, prediction time. We'll get into it. Texas A&M has never beaten Auburn at Kyle Field, which is so hard to believe. They've never beaten Auburn at Kyle Field. I think Auburn rolls into College Station with a huge amount of momentum, a solid game plan. They've only continued to show that moving forward. Obviously, hopefully they can carry that energy with them, and there's not, the deflation, the wind out of the sails. And then, of course, as you said, Texas A&M coming off the bye week certainly helps them. I think it's still going to be a close one, though. I think Auburn will pull this one off 35-31. That's my prediction.
Auburn's going to need big plays from their wide receivers if that can happen. If that's going to happen in this game, because I think the corners are an area that you can find some success against Texas A&M, but we don't really know if Auburn has that true number one go-to wide receiver just yet. There are a couple of guys that look like they're inching closer to being that, but that's not the way that Mike Bobo has designed the offense, to just say, okay, it's going to run through this particular player. Now, Tank Bigsby Saturday against Ole Miss, we kind of thought that that's what it would be the entire season. So he's getting healthier. He's had a better feel for how things are going. But I just think with what A&M brings up front on the defensive line and how that offensive line's playing, it's going to be a little bit too much for Auburn going into that environment. I think the game plan that Bobo and Harsin have devised offensively has been fantastic throughout the course of this year, and I think that's what keeps them competitive. And I do think this is a competitive game. I think both defenses will find some wins. I'm going to say 27-24, Texas A&M gets the win because they're at home and because the line of scrimmage most likely belongs with the Aggies.
Talking a little trash on the field? Yeah, we get it. Trashing the state with litter? That's terrible. Keep it clean, keep Alabama beautiful.
It's guaranteed that I die a legend. Yeah, son God, homie, I'm reverend. Preach, just protecting my investment. Ask about me, integrity's not a question.